I'm not sure why I returned to my post on the Sanhedrin after Jesus' death. The priests' insufferable arrogance and their bent toward manipulation nauseated me more than ever. I suppose it was partly out of habit, but mostly out of fear, to cut ties with these men so soon after Jesus' death. Well, it would have looked suspicious. On the third day after his death, the temple guards that had been posted at his tomb burst into our council meeting, their armor clanging loudly, lungs gasping for air. Their faces, white with fear and shock, spoke their message clearly before they even opened their mouths. Something had gone wrong, very wrong. My mind began to race. When he had caught his breath, the leader among them spoke. Jesus' body was gone. He then described an earthquake, a glowing white being that had rolled away the stone to an empty tomb, and to their complete and holy dread. Two women, friends of the disciples, had seen everything, and they were just as overwhelmed as they had been. He was equally adamant that his men had not fallen asleep, had not drunk too much wine, or had been hallucinating. His account, it could be trusted. "This is impossible," some of my colleagues yelled. Others of us, myself included, could only sit dumbfounded. I longed to stand up, gird my robe, and run without stopping to see the tomb for myself. But I didn't, for fear of what they might think of me, of what they might even do to me. Besides, I wanted to see what would now transpire here among the Sanhedrin. Caiaphas, his face red and the veins on his temples throbbing, over and over, cross-examined the guards. They stuck to their story despite its incredibility. At this point, some of the council members pointed out that their story, these rumors, could cause unruly commotion if allowed to leak to the crowds. If they failed to bury this Nazarene nonsense once and for all, the whole mess could end up being worse than it was before. So, dismissing the guards' account as false news, they made up a more believable story to explain the empty tomb. They told the guards, "Go now and spread the word that Jesus' disciples came at night and took his body away while they were fast asleep." No matter that the stone was massively heavy, even for several strong fishermen to maneuver, and even if they could have moved it, the noise alone would have been enough to wake the soldiers. These concerns of the guards, they were overruled. "Speak with authority," Caiaphas assured them, "and all the masses will swallow the whole story, just as they did last Friday. And if the news of what happened does trickle up to Pilate, we will intervene and assure him, even if it takes a little bribe here, this should be enough to cover for your promise to only tell our version of the story." Just as they had done with Judas, pieces of silver made rough places smooth. So the guards took the money and pledged to never tell anyone else their original version of the story. I cringed. The irony of the situation was incredible. These priests had accused Jesus of deceiving the masses, and here they were doing the exact same thing. Didn't they know that God saw their duplicity? Noticing that others were not as angry as I, brought into bold relief the difference between me and my Sanhedrin brothers. For sure, I was still struggling with sin and fear, but in Jesus' precious words, I was on the way to be born again. The chief priests perhaps thought they were getting the last word on the situation by planting this false narrative about Jesus' body being missing. As it turned out, their lie could not withstand the groundswell of the true story told by the disciples and the women who had first discovered the empty tomb. Silver and gold would not buy their silence. They had come to see the risen Lord with their own eyes, and nothing, that holiest of weeks, had happened by accident.